All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into some really interesting news coming out of the tech company Xmarton.
Yeah.
They've just made a couple big announcements, actually. E8 homologation and TAPA certification.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, and, if you're at all interested in the European automotive and logistics industries, like I know a lot of our listeners are,
Right.
this is going to be a really fascinating topic.
Definitely.
So basically, these announcements are showing a real commitment from Xmarton to quality and safety compliance, and
Yeah, especially security.
yeah, security is huge.
It's becoming really important.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of unpack both of these certifications. What they mean for Xmarton, what they mean for the industries, and also like what are the takeaways for us, for people listening, like what should we be thinking about?
For sure.
So let's start with E8 homologation.
Okay.
Can you just like break it down for us simply? Like, what is this?
Sure. So basically, E8 homologation is like the golden ticket for automotive technology in the EU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It means that it's officially approved for use across the entire European Union.
So just one approval covers them for like the whole EU.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, it used to be a real headache
Yeah.
having to navigate all the different national regulations in each country.
Oh, yeah.
But now with the E8, they just get this one approval and they're good to go everywhere.
So who does this testing? Like, who actually gives them the approval?
So it's done by this really well-respected organization called TÜV SÜD.
Okay.
They're known for being super thorough and rigorous. So, you can really trust that anything with the E8 stamp of approval has been put through the ringer.
Wow. So that means that Xmarton's technology can now be integrated, like, seamlessly into vehicles all across the EU.
Exactly, and that's a huge win for them. But it's also a big deal for the automotive industry as a whole.
How so?
Well, for one thing, it's going to help accelerate the development and adoption of new connected car technologies. Yeah.
That makes sense. All these exciting innovations in smart mobility, they're going to be able to hit the market much faster because companies like Xmarton don't have to jump through so many hoops anymore.
Right, and what does it mean for, like, someone who's listening to this? Like,
Well, think about it this way. When you're shopping for your next car and you see that it's equipped with Xmarton technology, you can be confident that it meets the highest EU standards for safety and performance.
oh, that's a really good point.
You can trust that it's been thoroughly tested and approved, so you don't have to worry about whether it's going to work properly or if it's going to be compatible with the infrastructure in your country.
Makes sense.
It really gives you peace of mind.
That's huge. Okay, so that's E8 homologation. Pretty exciting stuff.
Right.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this TAPA certification.
Okay.
So for people who aren't familiar, can you kind of explain what TAPA is and why it matters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So TAPA stands for the Transported Asset Protection Association, and they're all about security, but specifically for supply chains.
So like keeping cargo safe.
Exactly. Cargo theft is a huge problem worldwide, and it costs businesses billions of dollars every year.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And TAPA is working to address that by setting these really high standards for security throughout the entire supply chain.
Interesting.
So getting TAPA certified means that Xmarton has proven that they meet those standards and that they're taking security seriously.
So it's basically like a stamp of approval for security.
Exactly. And it's becoming more and more important, especially as global trade continues to grow.
So is this certification like mainly important for Xmarton, or is it something that like shippers and insurance companies and banks would care about as well?
Oh, it's definitely relevant for everyone involved in the supply chain. Shippers want to know that their goods are going to be transported safely. Insurance companies want to minimize their risk, and banks want to be sure that the goods they're financing are protected.
Wow. So it really does touch like everyone involved.
Yeah, pretty much anyone who's dealing with the movement of goods globally is going to be paying attention to TAPA certification.
Got it. So I know you mentioned that TAPA sets these like high standards for security. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Like what specifically are they looking at?
Sure. So TAPA has these 3 core modules that they use to assess security.
Okay.
The first one is FSR, which stands for Facility Security Requirements. And that basically focuses on the security of warehouses and storage facilities.
Oh, okay.
So, things like making sure the building is secure, having proper access control systems, and using security personnel.
Makes sense.
The second module is TSR, which is Trucking Security Requirements.
Okay.
And that covers the security of goods while they're actually being transported. So, using secure trucks, having GPS tracking systems, and training drivers on security procedures.
So it's like security for every step of the way.
Right. And then the third module is PSR, which stands for parking security requirements. Yeah, a lot of people don't think about it, but cargo theft can actually happen when trucks are parked, like at truck stops or rest areas.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so PSR focuses on things like having secure parking facilities with good lighting and surveillance systems.
Interesting. So Xmarton is now certified in all 3 of these modules.
Yes, they are.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It sounds like they're really covering all their bases when it comes to security.
Yeah, they're definitely taking a comprehensive approach, and that's really important because it shows that they're not just thinking about security as an afterthought, but they're really building it into their operations from the ground up.
Yeah, that's huge. So by achieving this TAP certification, Xmarton's really positioning themselves as a leader in logistics security.
Definitely. I think it's a really smart move on their part, and it's going to give them a big competitive advantage, especially as more and more businesses start to prioritize supply chain security.
And from the perspective of someone who's just listening to this, like, why should we care about all this?
Well, I think it comes down to trust. As consumers, we're relying more and more on complex global supply chains to get the goods we need.
Yeah, that's true.
And when we see that a company like Xmarton is taking security seriously and that they've gone through the rigorous process of getting TAPA certified, it gives us confidence that they're doing everything they can to protect our goods and to keep the supply chain running smoothly.
Okay, so let's bring these 2 certifications together, the E8 homologation and the TAPA certification.
Okay.
What's the big picture here? Like, what's the message that Xmarton is sending?
I think they're making a really powerful statement about their commitment to not just innovation, but also to safety, compliance, and security.
Yeah.
They're not just focused on building cutting-edge technology.
Right.
They're also making sure that it's safe, reliable, and secure.
And these aren't just like, nice to have credentials. These are really important for operating within the European framework.
Absolutely. These certifications are essential for Xmarton's success in both the automotive and logistics industries.
So they're really paving the way for growth and integration within these key sectors.
Exactly. And I think it's a really exciting time to be watching this company.
For sure. So just to quickly recap, Xmarton has achieved E8 homologation, which means their technology is now approved for use in vehicles across the entire EU, and they've also received TAPA certification, which demonstrates their commitment to securing the supply chain.
That's right. They're hitting all the right notes when it comes to quality, safety, and security.
Yeah, and it's clear that they're not just resting on their laurels, they're continuing to raise the bar.
For sure.
So as we move towards a future with even more technology in our vehicles and increasingly complex global supply chains, it's worth thinking about how these rising standards of certification and security are going to shape the landscape.
That's a great point.
What other areas might benefit from this level of scrutiny and validation?
That's something to really think about.
Yeah, so that's a thought I'll leave you with.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.